Hello, creepies and crawlies, and welcome back to another exciting, fun, challenging, demanding, stressful. Did I say fun? I think it's fun. Episode of Ice Cream Queens. And tonight it is going to be just myself and my lovely co host, Lauren. Can we go ahead and bring her in?
It has been so long since it has just been the two of us.
I know. But you know what? Here's the thing. We are talking about a topic that you and I are both very passionate about.
Yes.
And we are going to be talking about the latest and greatest, the newest episode, the newest movie, Beetlejuice. I'm like, I am in.
I'd take a series. I would take a series. That would be so fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely love to see a Beetlejuice series because we were introduced to so much so quickly, and
hmm
yeah, there's so much to cover. Before we get started, I would like to share with you what I did this weekend because it was absolutely amazing. Before I get started, you look like you were about to say something.
Yeah. Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
Warning, this show may contain strong language or disturbing topics, which may be unsuitable for children, and unusual humor, which may be unsuitable for adults.
All of the above, because that's pretty much us. That's us every day in a nutshell.
Also, before you jump into that, just because we were discussing a movie, it is kind of newish, and a lot of people are like, don't tell me what happened. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alerts. Yes.
We're going to discuss the movie. There's going to be spoilers. All right. What did
We are
you do
going.
this weekend?
Well, crap. Now I lost my train of thought. I'm like, really? Okay. So
I
yes,
broke it.
you broke DL as usual. Okay. So this weekend I attended Camp Dreadwood, and this was exactly what it sounds like. It's a camp. It's full of dead things. It's full of creepy things. It was an absolute blast. Oh, it was so much fun. Um, it is. I've got photos. Let's just go ahead and just pop up some of these photos and talk about. So it's set in an old west campground area, and you
Cool.
basically can either camp or rent a cabin. I was in a cabin. You can see like the two-story cabins in the photos. So
hmm
we were like on the second story, so we were able to kind of oversee. I'm like knocking everything around, oversee everything, and it was a whole lot of fun. But while we were there, everything, so you had basically this cowboys versus zombie thing going on,
hmm
and we were able to um watch shootouts. And okay, so for those of you who are actually watching,
hmm
we did meet this young man in the middle. His name is Jake C. Young, I do believe, and he is the great grandson of Clint Eastwood. And
Oh,
so the
cool.
entire weekend, he basically was Clint from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was absolute amazing. But, they were showing horror movies all night long, so we watched, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We
Good
also
choice.
watched, Rise of Piglet, the part of the Pooniverse.
Uh huh.
There were indie films to watch. Oh, yeah.
Sounds like a different kind of movie.
You know what? That's kind of what we were thinking as well, but it was so much fun. There was a costume contest, and of course, I went, and this
Yes.
is me in my full Lizzie Borden regalia, and yes, I am covered in blood, and here I am with Krampus, and we were both trying to get up the stairs, and both of us were tripping over the bottom of our. Everything is like floor length, and I mean, you kind of get the
Oh,
idea.
no,
But
I've been there.
oh
I've
yes,
been there.
so much fun. So this is Kat who was with us this weekend, and I in our cabin getting ready to go. Of course, you can see she's actually Lydia. That's why I really wanted to throw this up there because Kat
Yay.
and Mr. Fish has been on before was Beetlejuice, and she was Lydia, and I won second place, and they won third place, and of course. Krampus, who we saw with the
I
big
was about to
giant,
say, did Krampus get first? Because
absolutely. Well deserved too. No, it
yeah.
was an absolute blast. Everybody was a whole lot of fun. But again, the name of the camp was Camp Dreadwood. And if you get a chance to do this next year, I highly recommend it. It was so much fun, very laid back, not really overcrowded since it was the first time getting it going. But I'm just going to keep go to Camp Dreadwood. Let's keep this going. It was
I
amazing.
want to go next year. That sounds really fun. I have never been to a camp as an adult.
Um, This is actually the first true, I think, adult camp that I have, like, adult themed camp and everything, so it was a lot of fun. If you're one of those people who grew up and did, like, summer camps and stuff like that, this is kind of in that vein, but not in that vein. It was almost like an outdoor con in the way that it was set up because you had vendors and you had food trucks and all this other stuff, but of course, you also had all of the other more camp related things, and then, they had live bands, throughout the entire weekend, and just a whole lot of fun. The one thing that I would love to do is actually get into something like this where it's a bit more interactive. So, like, if you want to these zombies to attack you, you can, like, have something on, like, a VIP band or something of that nature where they can, get you, or if you wanna be a zombie, something where you can I would love it to be totally interactive. I think that'd be a blast. Okay, so I've kind of rambled on a little bit longer than I had intended to, so
A whole 6 minutes. You're fine.
I know. So you've gone to see Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I think you
Yes.
actually went the week it came out, correct?
I think so. I wanted to go opening night, but I was slammed making cosplays until the absolute last minute for a convention, and we
Yep.
could not go opening night. But I think it was like day 2 or 3, maybe 4. And we're like, you know what? We're gonna go and see it in the IMAX and see the big screen.
Yes,
That's
Eli. Hi, Jason. How are you? This is our con family. These are all of our buddies.
right.
Um, okay, so I have to ask, did you go at all dressed up when you went to see it, first of all? I mean, were you like Beetlejuice-esque when you like
I was Beetlejuice-esque. Yes, I
okay.
wore my stripy. Well, at the time I had green hair, like it was
Mhm.
dyed green. But hair alert, I've changed my hair color today. Um, but yeah, it was green when I went, and I was like, oh, I've got green hair, and I have 5 million pieces of clothing with black and white stripes on it. So I just threw a dress on and went in that just to kind of give it a nod. There was no one in the theater with us. We went during the day, like, the moment they opened because I didn't want 5 million people around me.
Of course.
Um, if honestly, if it had gone straight to movie, I would have just watched it at home and happily watched it. I have a big TV, we can watch it on, we can make our own popcorn. I'm not a theater person. It is very rare that I go to see something. I think the last movie I went to see was Abigail because my
Mhm.
daughter just really wanted to see that. So, yeah, not a big theater person, but I knew I had to go see this one in theater.
Oh, absolutely, and I think just because, and when you think about it, Beetlejuice has been in and around in existence. You probably have it as part of your childhood because I do believe, the original movie came out in the early '90s. So you're talking about, um, I am in the and here's I'm just wanna throw this out because it's kinda funny. Winona Ryder and I are the same age. So it's
Mhm.
interesting, and that's something that I'm gonna kinda touch on a little bit as we start kinda talking about this. But it's interesting because I was able to kinda grow up, or not grow up, I was already adult aged, but,
Mhm.
it was ingrained as part of my life, some of the things that we loved at a relatively early age, and now it's coming back around, and I'm just excited to have this here and just to be able to see it come full circle, and here we are with part 2.
It
S
is fun. Watching it from I was like a young child. Like the
Mhm.
party tricks for my parents would be like 4-year-old me, 5-year-old, however old, coming out going, nice effing model, honk honk, like to their friends without the bleep. Like they thought that was hilarious. So it's been part of the family for a while.
Um, so George Butler, can we pop that one back up just a moment? So our friend, or I said Butler, Bueller, Derp. I'm very tired. I am so sorry, George. Howdy Queens. I enjoyed the movie. My only criticism is I could have used more Keaton, as we all could, and that's actually
I
some of the
agree.
things that we're going to touch on. So
Mhm.
let's go ahead and get this started, and let's go ahead and kind of talk about what did you enjoy? What did you find as
Ooh, there's a moth.
fun?
Sorry.
Oh,
A
what?
squirrel.
Yeah, score.
What did I enjoy that is fun? Okay, so this is where a lot of people are going to disagree with me on a lot of things because I know a lot people hate remakes, they hate reboots, they hate sequels, they hate all of these things. And I can't say that they hate it enough because all I get is people complaining about it. I am the polar opposite. I go to these things to just go and have fun and appreciate it. And yes, would I have changed things about it? Yeah, obviously, but I'm not the one who made it. Like, I'm just gonna
Absolutely.
go and enjoy it. So the things that I would say that popped out the most for me, I loved the introduction of Beetlejuice's wife. And I know some people were complaining online saying, oh, that went on for too long. Like, we get the idea, get over it. But I did see some comments like that, but I was rocking out to that in the theater. Like, yes, it was so fun of an introduction of a character. It's been a while since a character has popped on like that and
Mhm,
just floored me.
mhm.
I don't want to like go through the whole movie. I'm going to start with her. I'm going to start with her. I liked that about her. And and also the wedding dress in the laundry mat place, and she pulls
Mhm.
out this white dress and just touches it, and it goes into this gorgeous black thing that I can definitely see you cosplaying one day.
Oh,
Uh,
no, I'm already figuring that one out. It's already in the works, we're not gonna lie. So I think that basically, let's cinematically, it
Mhm,
looked right. We saw the town that they grew up in or the town that they were living in and the house
mhm,
and everything was supposed to look normal. We also saw the afterlife. You know, when you're looking at the afterlife, they did expand upon that area a bit more. So cinematically, I thought it looked right. I thought it looked beautiful. You could tell that it was leaning into the "Hey there, stranger." Um, but you could tell that it was leaning into the previous movie with the
oh
color
yeah.
palette. It was, you know, you're looking at the character design, you're looking at the settings, you're looking at the
Mhm.
just the way it looks. It is obviously very stylized. It's very Tim Burton, and it
It,
was
oh, and so many
gorgeous.
nods. Yeah, it was
Yes.
gorgeous, and so many not like you're watching the beginning of this movie, and it's over picture of the town where everything is a model. It's
Mhm.
the model from the first movie, and then as things you're like, oh wow, that's a model. Then a horse moves or something, and you're like, oh no, is it real or is it a model? And it
Yep.
has you sitting there guessing, and then there's so many like memorable, there's the red painted bridge, the cover
Mhm.
bridge from the
Yes.
first movie, so many things that you're like, another one there, and it's fun.
So you're leaning into what I'm one of the notes that I have here in my notes is the nostalgic connection to the cast, characters, locations,
Mhm,
everything that we saw. And I kind of agree with you, and I'm also going to a little bit disagree with you. I think that a lot of people don't want to necessarily see a reboot or a remake, but if you're coming in with a sequel or a prequel, and I know some people are going to say, "Ooh, yes," "Ooh, no," but if you're coming in with a sequel and you are bringing in legacy characters and introducing new characters, I think that generally your audience is going to be excited to see it. Um, as long as, you know, it does the original justice. And image wise, everything about, you know, the nostalgia of the characters, the design of the characters, the wardrobe, the costuming, the sets, everything did the original justice.
mhm.
Um, you know, and some of the things that I was really happy to see also is okay, first of all, just going to say Catherine O'Hara as Delia again. Was it just me? She was scene stealing every scene
Oh,
she was
well,
in.
she always does that. She's such a good actress. Like your eye just draws to her. In up Schitt's Creek,
Yes.
any scene she was in, I would be watching her. What is in my eyeball? Can you stop it, please? Thank
Mhm.
you. Um, yeah, any scene she was in, and so especially her as Delia, though, it's such a good character. I only have one criticism about that, and you are probably going to disagree with me. I think
Okay.
um, from the original Beetlejuice, her outfits were immaculate
Oh, yeah.
and wonderful. I cannot tell you one thing she wore in this movie.
I remember a blue dress, and that's about it, and it was a blue dress that was designed to match match the afterlife. So I do recall that, but yes, no, the wardrobe for her seemed a bit toned down. But I also
Mhm.
kind of was thinking that that might be a bit of her aging, um, because here's the thing, as elder goths, as we start going from our high school years into adult life, and then you start going into having your own little baby bats, and then having your baby bats have baby bats. Eventually, you know, you develop a style that is that it changes and it ages with you. And I think that that was something that they were trying to communicate, because here you had Delia, you had Lydia, and then you had the introduction of Astrid. And you, and as interesting enough as it is, I mean, Astrid to me was not, she had the goth girl mentality, more almost emo girl mentality,
Mhm.
but she doesn't, you know, but she didn't really depict as a goth girl. I mean, she wasn't as over the top as most of the younger goth girls have a tendency to be.
The two things I can remember her when it came to, like, fashion,
Mhm.
her first outfit, there was, like, a striped, maybe crocheted, some kind of sweater,
Mhm.
and it had these, like, rips through it, and I was like, "Oh, that's kinda cute, that's a little punk," like, I like that, and then later, the Halloween costume, like, that is going to be on my mind for a while, her just running around everywhere in this vintage looking dress.
Yes. Which, by the way, is one source of irritation for people, because she's makes the reference that she was the French physicist Madame Curie,
Mhm.
and evidently she was Polish of descent. Don't quote me on that, but there has been some pushback against that, believe it or not. But I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. But um, I really enjoyed actually seeing Lydia and Delia move into the next stages of life. You know, you're so used to seeing Lydia as the teenage girl with the camera and the big hats, and she really didn't gravitate too far. She just almost aged it up. It was interesting because I was sitting there watching it going, I have that outfit. I could wear that. That's something I would wear. It was like my entire wardrobe was basically Lydia's closet, with the exception of my occasional, you know, stripes and all the fun stuff that people see when I'm like at cons and stuff. But my day to day go to is very, very much in the vein of what Lydia would have worn. And I like the fact that they didn't try to hide the fact that she was an older version of herself. You know,
Mhm.
she aged, Delia aged, and I thought it was great. And I also kind of loved the relationship that they kind of leaned into between Delia and Lydia.
I
Um,
did too. That was really fun to see them, like, almost buddies.
yes, because you know, with the first movie, and honestly, I did not watch the movie again. I didn't watch the original before I went to see this. So
Mhm.
some of the things that you see on screen, for me, I was having to remember from the last time I saw it. You know, it's probably been a couple of years since I've seen it. But you know, when I do recall that Lydia and Delia did have that almost that the traditional step monster daughter relationship,
Mhm.
and it was nice to see that not present so much, not
Mhm.
actually pretty much not even there.
Mhm.
um the scene where she was talking with Lydia, and she told her to, what was it, to I want you to be the goth girl that annoyed me all those years ago. I want you, you
Yes.
know, I was just, she's like, I know you can do this. Just be the goth girl that was so strong and annoyed me. And it was a nod back to that relationship, but it was
Mhm.
also telling her, be true to yourself, go back to where you were, and be that person. So I was just like, oh, I loved it. I did love that.
It was it reminded me of almost an Addams Family kind of feel, the relationship that they grew into.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some things that were, I don't want to necessarily say bad, but let's talk about some things that were maybe just not quite hitting, or you have questions about. We're talking about Lydia, we're talking about Delia, we've mentioned Astrid. We know that the original actor who played Charles was not asked to be
Mhm.
back in the film.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you, George. Very clever way to use Charles without Jeffrey Jones, plus Danny DeVito. Oh, yes, the cameo.
We'll
That
get
was
to Danny
amazing.
DeVito.
Oh, yes. But, when you start talking about Charles, I was watching it and I was expecting more of a blip, there he is. And that was all, and he actually, the character of Charles was in the throughout the entirety of the movie, to the point that I was just like, I understand why you didn't have him back. I do. I
Mhm.
don't know if he's incarcerated right now or not, but I understand why he was not back, and I would not want him back. But I also was just like, he was in it a lot more than I was anticipating.
I agree with that. I liked the intro of Charles. I liked that it went to this fun, like clay animation style thing, and then like, oh, and then his plane crashed. He died in a plane crash, and then it's back to the little clay animation thing. That was cute, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's how they're gonna explain that. It's on brand with the clay animation style from the original movie. Cool. I was not expecting, but I get that they felt like they needed to do something with the character because like if someone dies in a movie that's about death, then they don't go away. Then why did this one go away but others don't? I see why they felt like they needed to explain that, but that was a whole lot of headless shark bitten Charles. Like that was an excessive amount of Charles.
It really was, and there are probably some younger people that might go to view this that might kind of find that a bit gruesome, because as this movie has, or as this property in general, Beetlejuice, and now Beetlejuice, we had the children's version of it, so it has
Mhm.
actually leaned into being more of a family oriented movie, although it does deal with a lot of um adult topics when you think about death and the way that people die. And because I mean, if you think about it, those people who chose to unalive themselves are basically civil servants. They are
Mhm.
in mundane jobs, and and it's very clearly depicted in the original what they did. I mean,
Mhm.
when you think
My
about
little accident.
My Little Accident, and then,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of that that's present throughout, so but yeah, I kinda figured since it was, leaning into a bit more of the family friendly aspect of it, that it would be a little less, gruesome, but, I mean, not that it was gruesome to me, but I could see where bringing a small child might freak out at it.
I you lost me. You lost, please explain to me. Okay. So I'm following on the My Little Accident, self-unaliving and
Mhm,
civil servantness. I never put that together that the people who were working back there, but then again, I grew up watching this as a kid, so like stuff like that didn't register with me.
yeah.
But then if that is the case, then in this movie, why was Astrid's dad working there?
Actually, there were a lot of things like that. There were a lot of unanswered, and that's actually some of the complaints that I actually have about it. Obviously, the big one that everybody seems to have right now is that Dolores was inconsequential to the movie. She could have been there, she could have not been there. It really wouldn't have made that much difference to the storyline, because they didn't really do anything with her in the end. But let's do talk about that. Let's talk about some of the things that I thought were, for instance, if Charles was going to the afterlife
Mhm.
and he was able to be seen by Astrid and all of the rest of the family. Now, of course, not like appearing in the room with them like the Maitlands had initially, but she went to the afterlife and she was able, they were able to see Charles without any issues whatsoever. But they also were saying that she couldn't see that Lydia couldn't see her deceased husband. And I do know that I think that they kind of touched on that briefly, but there were a lot of little things like that that I felt were, we're going to present it as one way and then it's going to actually work out to be something else. When you start thinking about Astrid's dad and that Lydia was not able to connect with him and see
Mhm.
him and talk to him, but honestly, it seemed like she was able to talk to everybody else. Um, so I thought that that was a bit of a disconnect, that I didn't quite see how that lined up.
So the
Uh,
way I took that was Lydia was always attracted to the strange and unusual. And
mhm,
then she took and turned this into a career where she wanted to go and see these ghosts, make the money, make the TV show. But it seemed like Astrid's father and her had a falling out before his death. So maybe she didn't want to see him, so
good
she
possibility.
couldn't. That's the way I took it, but it's a very good question.
And then let's also talk about the characters, because as it was kind of presented in the original movie, and this was just something that I took away from this. Now I want to go back and kind of watch, but those people who had unalived themselves,
Mhm.
they basically were in almost this permanent civil servant type role. And I mean, maybe
I'm trying to think like back to the original movie. There was the My Little Accident. There was the hanging dude who was like just
mhm,
floating through. There was
yeah,
the guy who was flattened, run over. I'm guessing maybe he would have jumped in front of traffic. Um, so that is a potential way to do that. Hello.
hello Trinity.
Um, I remember a lot of skeletons from the original, but those are the only like civil servant. Oh, there was the lawyer chick. What was her name?
Juno,
Juno.
this
And I guess smoking could be considered a way of unaliving yourself if they took it that way.
Yep, she was also though when she would smoke, it would come out of her throat though. So there was, and I don't think
Mhm.
they went in and explained all of that, but that was just something that I kind of got from that, and I can't remember why I thought that. But the other thing that I was trying to figure out is,
Mhm.
and we had discussed this on our episode where we talked about the Beetlejuice universe. What is Beetlejuice?
He's a demon.
Is he
He's a
the only?
ghosty demon.
Well, is he a ghost or is he a demon?
That is a good question because he was human. Danny DeVito's character drank cleaning fluid. Bring it back up.
Yep.
Uh, Cleaning fluid, and he was a janitor. So yeah, that would make sense with the unaliving. Which,
Mhm,
if we're gonna talk about Danny DeVito's character, real quick, I just want to tell you. So when he's introduced, it's like
mhm,
a guy walking. He turns talking to this person. You don't see him yet; it's the back of him.
mhm.
But the moment he spoke one word, I was like, "Oh!" And there was no one around me to be like, Danny DeVito, Danny, because I was sitting there
Absolutely.
watching with my daughter, and she would give two craps about that Danny DeVito. So I was sitting there
Just like,
like,
"Who?" I know. I was the
chair
same
next
way.
to me.
And honestly, I feel like that was the best kept secret. I was not expecting that cameo.
I wasn't either.
And it was, and I loved his role. I loved everything that, I mean, it was amazing. But I mean, I thought he was, yeah, I was happy to see him. Um, but let's Okay, so we go back and we have this backstory and
Mhm.
on Beetlejuice, and we basically get and I do believe that he was a Portuguese gravedigger, hence why the segment when he starts speaking is in Portuguese.
Which that
Uh,
was very fun to sit and watch with a child who can't read the subtitles that quickly yet. So
yes.
I'm sitting here turning to her, like whispering things that they're saying.
Mhm.
And then some of it was they got away with quite a bit of adult material in that area. And I guess it was because it wasn't in English. I don't know. But I changed a lot of those words. And then we hugged a lot in bed. Like,
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, but so basically he was depicted as being a human.
mhm.
And he was depicted as, having fallen for this, uh, soul-sucking witch. I can't, because
Mhm.
she was part of a cult, but she was a soul-sucking witch is basically what she was, very beautifully done. After she took him,
Poisoned.
yeah, after she poisoned him, he then got rid of her in many pieces, and
Mhm.
her intro scene to me, by the way, was amazing, just pulling herself together and just watching her, like, that process was so beautifully choreographed. By the way, I understand it took her 3 days to film that segment because of all of the choreography. I mean, when
Mhm.
you think about her torso rolling out of the little cabinet that she was in, because
Mhm.
she was here's part of the spoilers. She's in multiple pieces, lots and lots of pieces, and the stitching that you see that is very Bride of Frankenstein is where she is basically stapling herself back together. And she has this interaction with Danny DeVito in which she takes him. Yeah, she right. Yeah, she pretty much sucks that man dry, and then
Oh,
proceeds
hell.
on from there. And quite honestly, I wanted to see so much of her. Not, I mean, her character. I wanted to
Mhm.
see. You had this beautiful character. You had this potentially amazing dark character that just kind of didn't really go anywhere. But she every time she was on screen, she commanded the screen. She was
Mhm.
a presence, and you had to stare at her. Um,
No, she was gorgeous, she was beautiful. I do wish the, background scene in Por it was cute, I really liked it was black and white, it was in a different language, it
mhm,
was very it felt like it belonged in the movie because it didn't, if that makes any
mhm.
sense. I do wish they'd have cut that a little bit, there was a little that was a little long for me. I definitely could have used more of just her afterwards, stapled together hotness. Go away, moth. I don't want to play with you. What do you I have a moth on my hand now. Um, anyway, I definitely wanted to see more of her as well. I thought the interactions with her were fun.
Oh yeah.
I did not like the Bob thing. I
Oh, that was devastating.
It was absolutely I think I have a pet moth now.
Mhm.
That was absolutely devastating. I really wish they wouldn't have done that or they find a way to fix that if they make a third movie because I was like, "What the heck? Why would you spend all of this time making me love this character
I
to
know.
do that?" I was personally offended at that.
Well, and here you have Bob in the first movie. He's just kind of a blip. The universe has
Mhm.
bestowed you with a moth.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay.
It's
But,
bath time.
you had Bob in the first movie, and I remember seeing him, but I don't remember having that much of an attachment to him. I just think that he was maybe there in passing,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden, he is the head of whatever department that Beetlejuice is now working in, by the way. Now he is a civil servant, although
And
he didn't
I didn't understand the, like, 5,000,000, bobs
Bob's.
either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the multiple bobs, that did not make any sense to me.
Although I love the idea of them running around town in the was it the yellow suits where they were just, like, running out of the house and then running all over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
it was kinda funny, but
I just don't see that many shrunken head guys, um, all hanging out in giant zoot suits that are, like, 7 feet tall. Like, there's gotta be a backstory with how they ended up
with all
being
of the Bobs.
with all of the Bobs. I remember I told my husband about it afterwards because he didn't get to go with us to the movie, and so I was
Mhm.
talking to him about it. I was like, "Yeah," and then Bob the shrunk, the shrunken head guy from like the couch of the first
Yeah,
movie. There was him, but then there was like a bunch of them, like minions. Like if you're watching
it was
Despicable
very
Me
much.
and they're running around like the minions from Despicable Me doing silly things, and he was like,
Abs
"What?" And I was like, "That's the best way I can describe it to you."
That's a perfect description of it because not only did I don't see that many shrunken head guys. That's what she said. Okay. Thanks, Toy Robot. But actually the comparison to them and Minions is a perfect um it's a perfect description because you had the one, Bob, that
Mhm.
was Beetlejuice's understudy. I don't know, what would you call him? He basically was helping run the
His
department.
mini me. I don't
His
me
mini me, maybe? Yeah, okay, we'll say it
his
that.
mega me.
Yeah, and then you have all of these other Bobs, and when they get out and loose in the world, they all of a sudden don these giant yellow zoot suits, and they actually looked and interacted like minions. I mean,
Mhm,
they had their own little mumbly, like, interactions with one another and stuff like
mhm.
that, so very much. Um, so the Beetlejuice origin story. Okay, so I don't know if he was a human, if he was a demon. If he was
Oh,
a demon, if he was a human, why did he become a demon?
what if, what if Beetlejuice the human or the person, whatever his name was before, was
Beetlejuice?
possessed, or it was Beetlejuice? Okay.
Mhm.
What if the human was possessed by a demon when he died, and the demon was like, I like this guy. We're just gonna like together. That's just a theory.
Well, and I mean, that's and here I don't necessarily recall. I'm trying to remember, did Juno refer to him in the original as being a demon? Because Lydia did in the
Hmm.
new one. She referred to him as a demon named Beetlejuice.
Hmm.
So, but no, that was one of those things you have. They introduced this origin story. He is human. He is a
Hmm.
grave digger. He is
Grave digger or
married.
grave robber?
Grave robber, I am so
Okay.
sorry. I keep saying grave digger, but he's a grave robber.
Okay.
He marries this soul-sucking witch who is part of a cult, um, in which she poisons him, and he retaliates after he is dead, and, then he becomes a bioexorcist? I'm like okay, I'm like, there's so many things. I'm like, why does he despise the living so much? I mean, I understand being a grave robber and that you're used to digging up bits and pieces and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you despise the living. You're actually digging up the deceased and destroying their the sanctity of their graves and their grave sites and selling those bodies for parts or whatever they may be used. But we
I could
don't
just
know.
imagine people around that time didn't really treat him that good. Like he's hanging around with corpses all the time. I'm sure he didn't smell great. Um, I'm sure
Yeah.
people just like through every time frame have sucked. So I that doesn't bother me. Um I do want to say one, I guess it's a correction. I don't know. You stated that he was poisoned and then after he died killed Dolores. I took it as before he died
Oh,
because
okay.
that's how the curse would have worked is he had to kill her before
Oh,
he
okay,
died
okay.
because if she had killed him then she would be eternal and then I guess maybe she did become eternal though and that's why she's not.
Well, think of it this way,
Now I'm confused.
she's hacked up into a ton of pieces.
Mhm.
And her body basically, although it was disassembled, reassembled itself, and she continued on. I don't know. I mean, there's so many unanswered bits and pieces, and honestly, I'm trying, like you, I'm
Mhm.
trying to read what is going on. I am trying, and because it was such a quick shift, all of a sudden it's like here we're talking about him, and then black and white in another language, and now I'm like, oh wait, now I got to read, and so and I love
Ah,
movies with subtitles, I really do, but this was one that it just kind of hit so quickly, and when you are focused on reading, you're not really paying attention to everything that's going on screen sometimes, but
mhm,
so here we have Beetlejuice. He's in the afterlife. He was a human, now he's a demon. He is a bioexorcist. How did he become a bioexorcist? We know that he has a gift of getting rid of the living. And then, why does he, I had the question, why does, and that does make sense that, that would explain why he despises. But the other thing is, everybody in the afterlife, if I remember correctly,
mhm,
initially was scared of Beetlejuice, implying that he was a very powerful person
mhm.
and or entity, whatever he was, whether he was a past lifer or a demon, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. Um,
And
but
now
I
he's
was
just Joe in the corner office.
absolutely. I mean, you had this shift in dynamic, but so you have so I think that there were some bits and pieces that were kind of missing. Um it also, and I really hate to say this, it took me a minute to realize that um Lydia was a psychic in the first movie because she was seeing the deceased, and I'm like, "She became a psychic?" I'm like, my brain was not functioning, and it just, like it took me a minute to connect the relationship with the Maitlands and her seeing them as ghosts and being able to see, because my brain was like, "Is it because Beetlejuice came into the picture now that you can see all of these?" I'm like, "No, she could see that going into it." So, kinda leaning back to that, for those of us who hadn't seen it in a little while, probably might not have been a bad idea, but,
You know who we're forgetting to talk about entirely, and it
yep.
kind of gives a fun. Commentary on the movie itself.
Sure.
Astrid's big bad.
Yes, actually, so we have a character by the name of Arthur, and
Mhm.
Arthur is her boyfriend, and quite honestly, I love that storyline a little bit more than I loved everything else.
I liked the story. I like it was a little predictable. I'll give it that because the
Yes.
moment she went through that fence and conked her head on that tree, I was like, she's got her psychic powers activated. And then he poked his head over, and I was like, that boy's dead. Like,
And see, I didn't necessarily, that didn't necessarily click with me at
mm,
first until I started realizing something was off when they went in the house and the parents never turned around and stuff like
mhm,
that, but, um, I thought that that was kind of a fun little twist because you have her in this relationship, and by the way, I thought that, Jenna Ortega did a really good job of
oh,
stepping in
she's
and being
so
an active
good.
part of that franchise and everything, and, but yeah, I really like that storyline. I like that character. Basically you have this relationship where she has bonked kind of went flying down a hill. She's in a state of distress almost, I do believe.
Mhm.
Um, she is
Almost
now
hit by a car. Like, yeah, that would have been
what
terrifying.
and then you have, like, your grandfather's obviously, she is very unhappy with the life that her mother leaves. She thinks that her mother is a fraud because she
Mhm,
hasn't been able to connect her with her dad, and so the one thing that would convince her that her mom was really able to commune with the dead is to be able to connect with her dad, and her dad evidently chose to not be the reason that they are focused on death so much. I don't know. But so she meets this young man, and they seem to have a cute little bond and everything. And I mean, the other thing is you're also dealing with um she is now in a situation where her what should be a traditional mourning type situation and a traditional funeral has been hijacked by her grandmother wanting to make it into performance art. I think that George mentioned the house being totally in a shroud and
yeah, I
the
honestly loved that. I thought
I
that was amazing.
oh, I did too. I thought, but I mean, if you think about it, everything that Delia was doing to make herself feel better was making probably or it seemed to be making her grandchild not feel like anybody was taking it seriously. I think she was very annoyed with everything. And then when you have, um, my brain just went dead. Who is the boyfriend? Rory? Ro Lydia's boyfriend, Rory, yes,
Oh
her
god.
manager, and basically he is associated with her Lydia's television show that she is part of, so basically she has grown up to be a, paranormal psychic type, and
Mhm,
I don't wanna say investigator, but she goes into people's homes and she interacts with people,
mhm.
entities in their house and stuff like that. And she did say that she was able to help the Maitlands pass on, so that did kind of explain why they weren't there, but he is just slippery and icky, and now they
I yeah, I didn't like him. I also didn't like the way they wrote Lydia to react around him.
mm-mm.
I don't feel like she would have grown to be that kind of person in a relationship. Does that make sense to you at all?
No, because she's very codependent at that point. Because when we
Mhm,
see her as a young person, she is a very, self-assured. She knows who she is. She doesn't mind being weird and, the strange and unusual, but now she has become this codependent person.
mhm,
And I don't know if it's because, when you grow up with, because that was one of the other things is, you basically know that she got married,
mhm.
and had a kid, and then but you don't know what her life was like in between. So, I mean, I guess if you think about it, if you are the strange goth girl that can see dead people and talk to them, there's probably not a lot of people that you can interact with. You probably start feeling very shut down. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But she
I don't
ends
know.
up
Speaking as a strange goth girl, I don't think that the waters out there are that bad for fishing. I I'm
Well,
just saying.
no, but here's the other aspect of it. We're strange in our interest and our taste, but we have been able to connect with other people, and that are similar to ourselves. She's in this small town that is very not. I mean, everything about the town that they go to, the town that they're from, and I can't remember. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it. But the town that they were from and they lived in was very normal. Was very There probably weren't many people like her, and I can definitely see her being alienated being in that environment. Um, I mean, if you're small town, rural country, little, I mean, I know it's not rural country, but I mean, it is basically a small town environment that she's grown up in. But I don't know. I mean, but you also add into it, it's like we have our uniquenesses in our aesthetic, the things that we like, but we're also not seeing dead people.
Fair.
I mean, how many people, I mean, if you think about that aspect of it, can you imagine being a teenager in high school and talking to somebody who's not there? And then
Yeah.
I mean, so there's so many different things, but I mean, somehow or other, she ends up being this codependent person who has um, connected with this jerk, Rory, and who is basically just leeching off of her, and everything that he does is meant to further himself, better himself, put him in a different position, to control her financially. I guess I don't know.
It's
Um,
for the money. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just yeah, I didn't particularly care for that aspect because I was like, I didn't really like the idea that she was portrayed as being as weak as she was.
I
Um,
agree.
especially
I wasn't a big fan of that.
Especially coming from a household that had somebody like Delia in it who was, very aggressive, very over the top.
Mhm.
If you have spent a substantial amount of time around somebody who is extremely outgoing, even if you are an introvert, you pick up aspects of that personality. You develop coping mechanisms to deal with, how to approach people, how to interact people. I know this because, when I have been around people who are extremely extroverted, I mimic their patterns to be able to interact with people. I think that's part of what introverts do is we learn to mimic those around us and mirror what they're doing, and you just keep what sticks. But
All right. I what do you think of the Soul Train?
well, so I used to watch Soul Train. I used to love watching Soul Train. So I didn't really have that much of an issue with it because it was just a
Mhm.
flashback to something that um I remember growing up. I'm trying to remember exactly when it came on. I'm having a blank, but I remember watching a show and then Soul Train coming on after that, and I would sit and watch that and it was a lot of fun. So it was kind of like hitting on something that I remember from my youth that was, kind of fun. I take it you didn't care for it?
It was okay. So the thing that really hit me around that time when they brought on the Soul Train, I was like, gosh, that's very like it's very 70s.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking, I was like, it's very different than the first movie when it comes to the music and stuff. The first movie was very like, what was it, 60s? And then I was
Ac
like, was it 50s or 60s?
actually, I would say that, so Harry Belafonte, I do believe, was, 1960s, but, I mean, the entire soundtrack was designed to be, um, Danny Elfman's music, the original,
Mhm.
and, accented with calypso, and so you had this vibe that went all the way through it, and that was actually I'm glad that you mentioned that because that was
Well,
something I was missing.
this is my hope. This is my secret hope. I want a third movie that is 80s. So we got the first one in the 60s, the
Mhm.
second one in the 70s. I want Beetlejuice in the 80s. And I think that would be so fun.
This this was not the '70s. I think everything about what we were seeing in the real world was designed to be modern, like 2024. Um
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, it wasn't placed in the '70s.
Oh,
I was
okay,
just
okay, I'm
saying,
sorry.
if you're listening to the music, a lot of the music that they used, other than the Danny Elfman, of course,
Mhm,
but
yeah.
the stuff, the singing wedding scene, the Soul Train, all of those bits, I believe, were '70s.
The MacArthur Park, I would have to look that up to see when it was, but,
What's the song title?
MacArthur
I'm
Park.
Googling. Oh, okay. Please
Um,
spell that.
hey, Geek Gumshoe, if you're watching and you know the era, can you tell us? That would be great. Um, I do
Yeah.
kind of feel like, but when I went and I looked at the soundtrack, because I actually noticed that there wasn't a whole
60
it was the '60s, okay. Um
68, yeah.
So, yeah, so you do have Soul Train that was kinda disco era, so that could have been 19 late '60s, early '70s,
Mhm.
because '70s was the heyday. You had MacArthur Park, which was the 1968, you said?
It's when it came out, yeah.
Okay, but if you went and looked at the rest of the soundtrack,
Mhm.
no. There
No?
so that
Okay.
no, the rest of the soundtrack, there's
Dang
no
it. I wanted it.
no, there was n to me, I didn't feel like there was any continuity to because that was one of the things that I thought really created the atmosphere of the original the first one, is that you had what you would consider soundtrack music, as in Danny Elfman scores. Everything else was 100% calypso, Harry Belafonte, and it was amazing, and it created this dynamic that was a lot of fun, and um it was a
Okay,
lot of
so we have Tragedy by the Bee Gees,
tragedy.
Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett, Deo, of course, when they sang it at the funeral as a
Okay.
callback to the original.
So,
Um,
okay, maybe it is a bit more '70s
Cry
than I was
Cry, Where's the Man? Right Here Waiting, Soul Train theme, MacArthur Park. I don't know. It felt the whole thing felt very '70s to me, and I was like, please tell me this is hinting towards a third '80s Beetlejuice. I want it.
which, now that you're saying it, the Bee Gees, tragedy probably would have been around 1970s, so, yeah, I mean, maybe it was. I mean, I was just for some reason, when I was looking at it, because there was also, Maisie Starr was in the mix somewhere, so there was a lot of things that I was like,
Mhm.
"Mm, yeah, I don't know." The thing that I would also like to add to that,
Mhm.
as much as I loved the dinner scene with the "Dale" from the
Mhm.
original movie, I got bored with the musical scene at the end.
It
It
was a
went
little excessive.
it went too long. I think
Yeah.
if they would have cut that down, it was fun until it got way too long, so, and I think that really, and I know that we're in the last couple of minutes, 'cause it's like we've
Oh,
got about yeah,
oh, this went by
yeah,
fast.
uh,
We haven't
I
even talked about the oh, sorry, keep going. What were you saying?
no, no, no. So I was just kind of wanted to touch on some things, with the quick kind of wrap up, and we can talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. I mean, I think we kind of talked about what we liked.
Defoe.
Willem Dafoe, I
Yeah.
loved his character. He was a lot of fun. I mean, he was a background character, but I thought that, I mean, he was a fun character. He was, and
I I was amazed that they did that with that character, especially after the recent events that have happened in Hollywood. Like his little chick who is following around and helping him, she had
mhm,
been shot. There was a bullet hole through her.
yeah.
Um and with this his whole like so he's into the character and he's an actor and all that. And I was just like, interesting choice. Great job acting it, but
Well, actually, Tim Burton said that he did not want it, and I think this was a Tim Burton and Michael Keaton decision,
mhm.
that probably more so Burton, that he did not want it to be PC. He did not want it to fall into that category. He wanted still to have that level of irreverence and, just non-political correctness that the original had, and he stuck with that. And so there's an element of me that I'm like, I kind of appreciate that because it wasn't trying to hide because those are all things that have really I yeah, I agree that sometimes when you look at it, it's a little bit distasteful, but,
Oh, no, I
this was
loved
also
that they did it.
oh, yeah.
I was just baffled after the stuff that has recently happened, and like that's the character design you chose. All
Um,
right.
I think we're in the last 5 minutes, so I just
Oh
basically
god.
wanna say
Okay.
the one thing that I really just did not care about,
Mhm.
and I think that this is, probably when you have a sequel that is so far apart
Mhm.
and you're trying to do fan service, you have a lot of repetition. So, for instance, a lot of the gags that we saw were things that were present in the first movie. So, for instance, like when he's like the face and then the
Mhm.
sandworms eating the bad guy at the end. I
Mhm.
also thought that the best gag in in the movie was "Let's spill our guts. I'll go first," and then he does the gut spilling. It was in the trailer. I thought like the best bits for me, a lot of times, with the exception of Dolores putting herself back together, I
Mhm.
thought were kind of in the trailer. But the for me, just overall, I love seeing the characters. I love the introduction of the new characters. I hate that there was no culmination of interaction between Dolores and Beetlejuice. I was kind of hoping there would be struggle at the very end where he
Mhm.
would have to face off a bit against this beautiful boogeyman that they have created, basically, and that he would have to fight her. But also, but that once again, where the script fell flat. Um, Great ideas, way too many ideas. I mean, when you start thinking about everything that they were trying to fit into this movie,
Mhm.
Delia and her death and Beetlejuice and running from Dolores and running this department and trying to hook up with Lydia the entire time or trying to get her back. And then Lydia and Delia's relationship, Lydia and Astrid's relationship, Astrid and Arthur. And then, there was just so many moving parts
Mhm.
um, that I don't there was no real punch when it came to how they concluded the movie. You had
It
this
was a
build it, and it was like,
very
"Ugh." Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very flat falling end at that point. There is a little bit more to the end of the movie where they like, oh, was that a dream? Was it not a
Mm,
dream? Which I liked that left it open ended enough to make a third movie. I was not a fan of the baby Beetlejuice.
no.
I could have done without the baby Beetlejuice. It was weird. It was a little too weird for me, and I like weird. So um, I do have to say I love the storyline with Astrid and her big bad, and the fact that
Oh,
Lydia
that was
had
amazing.
to
Yeah.
team up with Beetlejuice. I think we've
Yes.
all been wanting
Oh,
that
yeah.
team up
Absolutely.
for so long now, ever since watching the cartoon and seeing them run around, be bestie pals, and we've all been wanting to see that team up. And so it was really nice. Honestly, I could have done more with that. I could have done if they'd added 30 more minutes onto the movie of her and Beetlejuice teaming up to fight Dolores. I really feel like they concluded the storyline with I cannot remember his name. God, Astrid's big bad. What's his name?
Arthur.
Arthur. I feel like they concluded that storyline well. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
fine. That fit in the movie. It was a reason for them to team up. That's fine. That cool. But if they had cut more of Charles, if they
Mhm.
cut the baby Beetlejuice gags
Yeah.
and added maybe 30 more minutes of them actually teaming up to and making Dolores into an actual big bad, you don't freaking kill Bob and then just have her eaten by a dang sandworm.
I know.
Um, it was very flat falling to me on that,
Yes.
but all the
Uh,
rest of it was great.
And you talked about this dream sequence at the end, and,
Mhm.
when I went and I looked it up, it states 100% it is a dream sequence. It is Lydia having a dream about, Astrid marrying this character that they refer to as Vlad. I think his name
He
was
looked
Vlad.
like Vlad, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was something that said Vlad, but,
Mhm.
she
Well, they
marries him.
when they met him, they were traveling, I believe they were in Transylvania,
Yes,
and I
they
think
were. Absolutely.
he was dressed up as Vlad the Impaler, so I didn't know if
Yep.
that was his real name or if it was like, "I am dressed as Vlad," you know?
Um,
Um
when so the actor's name is Felipe Cates,
Hmm.
and he portrays the character's name is Vlad. And it's a
Okay.
young man dressed as a vampire who marries Astrid in Lydia's dream.
Hmm.
So that's all a dream sequence. And for me, I mean, I kind of like the idea of wrapping up the story, but also I kind of really wish that they could have dropped all of that out and just had her save her daughter, and then her and Beetlejuice fight Dolores, and I would have been fine. Like I said, too many moving parts.
I liked the dream. I wish they wouldn't have gone so long into, and then she's pregnant, and then she has the Beetlejuice baby, and then
Yeah.
I wish they'd have cut it earlier. I loved her waking up and there's Beetlejuice, and wait, no, I'm waking up now, and where he's not there.
Mhm.
I loved that it left it you questioning
Yes.
at the end. That was fine, but
Yeah.
definitely could have cut it like
Oh, yeah.
some pieces of it.
I mean, overall, I loved the movie. I loved the experience. I thought it
Yes,
was a lot of fun. I thought visually it was really nice to see those characters introduce new characters. I love Willem Dafoe. Everything he's in is, I mean,
he
he's
was so
just
good.
he's magnificent. He is probably one of those actors that I gravitate to. Uh, Monica Bellucci is another one. In this character, I thought was beautiful. I am a huge Bride of Frankenstein fan and fanatic, and so for me, seeing her made into that character basically was, I was just like, "Ooh, look at it, look at it!" I was so excited, and basically found myself going, I not only want to be her, I'm going to be her. I'm going to put that outfit together. I'm going to paint staples on my face. I'm going to be her. So I
Mhm.
was excited to see a character that I could get into. And the other thing is they weren't trying to hide her age either, and I was
Mhm.
excited to see that. I mean, you could they weren't trying to hide everybody's age and everything, and they were allowing it to be what it is. And
And let me just say, when it comes to not hiding the characters' ages,
mhm,
they did well when it comes to the makeup
mhm,
for these aging actresses. I have this is a pet peeve of mine. Right now, we're watching the second season of Good Omens,
mhm,
and there is an older lady. She plays a demon in it, and they try to give her a cat eye liner in a couple scenes, and you could see that the person who put this on her did not know how to work with wrinkles when it
yeah,
comes to a liner like that. Same complaint I have with the newest Morticia
mhm,
in the Wednesday TV show. Whoever did her makeup did not know how to put on lipstick
mhm,
for an aging mouth. It looked like the
absolutely.
lipstick was like smearing all around up her face. And I was like, will you please? I get it. These are great makeup artists. I'm sure they do wonderful work on someone who is 23 years old. Please get some people who know how to work on aging skin.
Well,
And
and I
this movie did.
it's a disservice to the actors and actresses when you have a makeup artist that is used to working with 20 and I mean I make no bones about it. I am a woman of a certain age. I am in my 50s, and I like to think that I am the elder on this group here. I definitely am. But there is a difference in working with aging skin and wrinkles and all of those things, because I mean your lipstick does feather if you don't know how to fix it. And even if you do know how to fix it, certain lipsticks are going to feather.
Mhm.
Sorry, that's just part of it. And the eyeliner is the same thing, because ideally when you start working, and makeup artists are notorious to do this, the ones that I have actually done, is they want to pull that up, and I'm like, no, you can't do that with
You
aging
gotta have
eyes. You
a wiggle
Yeah,
eye.
you have to actually look down while you're doing it, and you have to kind of get a natural it's yeah. No, I totally get it. I totally get it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it
It was
was
fun.
fun. I liked seeing the characters. I'm so happy to see Michael Keaton coming back and being back, and
He did so good. And I feel like with all of the new characters coming in, not enough people are talking about Michael Keaton himself as Beetlejuice. Because we just
and
did it. Like
Batman.
we were sat in here and we're talking about every other character, but he did so good stepping back into this role.
Absolutely, he's doing a phenomenal job. He did it with Batman. We saw him in the Spider-Man universe and the Spider-Man movies. So I'm just loving seeing his resurgence. And the next thing that I want to see is I want to see him and Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman. as because I'm like, I gotta see him and I gotta see Batman and Catwoman, and it's gotta be my Catwoman, and I'm not gonna be happy unless it's him and Michelle Pfeiffer. Okay. And on that note, we're 5 minutes over. Oops. So yay! So we liked it, but we
Yes.
did recognize that there were issues.
Yes.
Um, and I think that you're gonna find that with any property that is especially that far away from the original. But it was an absolutely fun, nostalgic romp for those who kinda grew up watching the original. And it introduced a lot of characters, and honestly, I would love to see an origin story of, Beetlejuice and with a bit more leaning into Dolores because, I mean, I wanna see more of that character because I absolutely loved her. And here she is in her beautiful, beautiful self, absolutely amazing. And I want that dress. That's the only thing I could think when I saw her on the screen. It's like, she's so gorgeous. I want that dress.
They
I
have
want
the
that
dress
dress.
at Spirit Halloween. We were just there yesterday, and I was
No,
like, "Already?
no, I'm gonna,
Wow."
yeah. I will be putting together my own version of that with all of the food
Oh,
because I don't I
I
don't
figured.
I don't do the spirit Halloween thing. You know that. I'm
I know.
like I'm
Well,
like,
we went looking for a specific outfit. They did not have it. Goose was very upset. She wanted to be the
oh.
creepy clown from the art movies from Terrifier, the girl. Um,
Oh.
yeah.
Honestly, at this point, it's probably best that you didn't because at some point she's probably gonna wanna see that. It would be traumatizing, and then you will have every other grown adult going, "You didn't let her watch that, did you?" And
She's seen a
it's
couple clips of the little
yeah.
girl to get an idea because she so walking up, I didn't even bring this up. This was not my idea. I was like, let's go pick out a Halloween costume. They had a giant plaster poster size thing of
Mhm.
this character on the window on our way in to Spirit Halloween. And I was like, okay, well, let's go in. She was like, wait, who's that? And I was like, that's a little girl from a creepy movie. I want to be her. I'm like,
No, no, no.
uh.
Okay.
So I did pull up a couple scenes to just give her an idea. The scene in the laundromat where they're playing
Oh, they're
like
playing patty
patty
cake, yeah.
cake. I let her watch that little bit of the scene right there, the patty cake, and I was like, there she is.
Yeah,
See?
okay. Oh,
Sorry, I
we're
keep
gonna no,
talking.
no, no, no,
End
we're
of the
gonna have
episode.
I haven't seen you in a little it's been a weird month or so, but, with that said, I'm going to say pleasant screams, and we
What'd
will
she say?
see you yeah, what you say? Um, what?
What?